The way we purchase and receive goods is starting to get pretty futuristic. Putting an order in on Amazon, having groceries, supplies, or even novelties arrive at our home in hours to days, being organized by autonomized supply chains which ensure that the products are where they need to be, waiting almost for you to order them, coordinating the actions of stores, warehouses, delivery people, all so that at the click of a button, you get the items you need in good condition and fast. And yet, the way we find and select those items remains in many ways 20th century. If anything, the methods that we use to search and find items on online stores have moved somewhat backwards, as it is proven in the store's best interests to funnel our clicks faster to more leading items rather than having us poke around for an item that we think we need and try to find it. This may seem like a minor matter, but when you take into account the changing nature of commerce and how so many more businesses and individuals create and sell new and different products, the superfluence of items which are out there and the superfluence of origins that they can come from, and the people that they can reach, not just local, but national and worldwide. And yet, often, this is primarily through the medium of a giant online marketplace. Suddenly, this becomes a much more of a significant impact. It's not only a question of how comfortably and easily can we find something online that we want to buy, but rather it changes the very nature of how we understand what's out there. This causes significant changes to how new products enter our lives, how we spend our money, how we commoditize our purchases. Are we trying to buy something fast and cheap that we need here and now? Or are we trying to buy something that will last a long time and be a mainstay in our home? Do we have a way to differentiate that when we're looking for it? Would we know the difference if we found it? If we're buying the cheap thing, do we have a way to get that thing faster, know what its quality is relative to the cost, and then be able to dispose of it in a way that it will return its raw resources into the, say, life cycle of raw materials? If our understanding of brands and products is filtered and to some extent distorted by the medium through which we view it, by how they are presented to us on Amazon, on eBay, on any retailer, do we then miss something in terms of the optimal way that products should enter our lives? To make this a little more concrete, let's take a couple of examples. Let's say the knife that I use for chopping vegetables breaks. I need a replacement knife. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I just use it for making dinner quickly. There is a very limited amount of brain power that I want to put into replacing this knife. I want it soon. I want it just decent quality enough to maybe last a few years before I have to think about this again. I'm only going to use it when I'm prepping dinner for a few minutes each night. There's a limited extent that I want to think about this. So I hop onto Amazon, let's say, and I look for a knife. Now Amazon is going to show me the products that it thinks A, match my need, and B, which are likely to get me to purchase, and C, which gives Amazon directly the most sales. Part of this is also wrapped up with the antitrust issues that are going on in the moment. But even leaving that to the side, you as the consumer, as the customer looking for this knife, now are faced with two options. You'll be presented with some sponsored, promoted products. If you're in a hurry, you can go and grab that one. It'll probably get to you within a day or two. That's pretty good. Is it the best bang for your buck? Maybe not. Is it going to last long? That's hard to say. What's your other alternative? Try to use Amazon's filters, search parameters, check out the reviews, hope that those reviews are legitimate, and after a while, 20, 30 minutes maybe, come to a conclusion on what knife is going to get you what you want, and then you purchase it. Maybe you ended up spending a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. If you went the first direction, the thing that made you put in less brain power, that got you where you want it to be faster, you may not be buying the optimal knife. Maybe it'll break again. Maybe it has strange chemicals because it's a cheap knockoff. You don't know, but you do have that product in your home sooner than later, and you didn't have to dedicate much time to thinking about it. Is that an optimal outcome? I'd say no. But likewise, if you took the other route and spent half an hour looking for a knife, you still might not end up with the knife that you're looking for. Amazon still caters the results to what it thinks you want to see. Likewise, if the reviews got loaded with false reviews or the product got switched, you might think you're buying, if you're not careful, something that you're not actually buying. And in the end, it's hard to know before you have that knife in your hand how well it's going to work. And in the meantime, you've wasted half an hour of your life that maybe you didn't have to waste, or you certainly didn't want to waste, on something as trivial as finding a knife for cutting vegetables. Neither of these is an optimal outcome. And while it is a minor factor in your life, as it pertains to one knife for cutting vegetables, when this process repeats itself for almost every purchase decision you have to make, it not only impacts how you spend your time, but what kind of products end up in your home and where your money goes. Is your money helping the companies and the products that you like? Are you ending up with a knife that will serve you well, that won't leach dangerous chemicals into your food, perhaps? Well, the fact of the matter is that's not something that you're going to put that much time and effort into thinking about for every decision that you make when you purchase an item. It's just not realistic or practical. But the more that we rely on online marketplaces, the more we rely on a superfluance of products being available, we need to have a pipeline that supports making these good decisions. Let's take another example. Let's say you want another knife, but in this case, it's not something small for cutting your vegetables. You're trying to eat a bit more healthy. And so you're doing some more of your meal prep at home, and you're going to be doing a lot of cutting big slices of meat and chicken. And so you want a really quality knife. So maybe you decide that Amazon is not the way to go for that. So you hop over to Etsy, which has many independent sellers. In fact, as of 2019, it had over 2.5 million sellers. Not all of them sell knives, but that's still a lot of options. And Etsy, too, has readjusted its searching and filtering process to direct your clicks and your purchases to a more faster and streamlined buying process, which also supports the sellers that they want to promote. Sellers that look good and sellers that make them look good as a company. That does not necessarily align with the knife that will suit your interests best. But even if those more detailed filters and search parameters were there, it would still require a lot of your attention and a lot of your time to attempt to find the knife that you were looking for. And with millions of search results, potentially, how certain can you ever be that the knife that will suit you best is the one you found? How important is it that it is the knife that you should have? What will the actual quality difference in your life be if you buy a slightly substandard knife? Will it break and you'll cut yourself during meal prep one day? It's unlikely. It's possible. Will it just wear out more quickly and you'll have spent more money for a knife that you need to replace before long anyway? That's also possible. But more particularly, the seller, the individual who made a knife, put time and effort into making something high quality that fits a certain need, is potentially not connecting through this medium with you, the person who should be buying that object. And again, in one given instance, this may not make a substantial difference. But the more that we rely on these kind of systems to make the connection between individual and product and seller, to funnel items from the people who make them to the people who need them in an efficient way, we need this process to work well. If every item in your home is not quite right, you'll be in a bad way. You can see this in a very more obvious and physical way with a piece of furniture. It's very hard sometimes to find a bed, a couch, a chair that fits just right, that feels right and will continue to feel right and support your body in the right way for years to come. But when you find that piece of furniture, you know it. It feels right. And on the other hand, if you pick a piece of furniture that doesn't work for you, that doesn't quite fit you, you'll be uncomfortable all the time. You'll get back pain. You'll be in a bad mood all day. Healthcare professionals talk about how important it is to invest in a good quality bed, just because that good night's sleep can make so much of a difference to everything else in your life. And that is dependent on you finding that right bed. Now, Even in this day and age, many of us still rely on going to a physical store and trying the bed. But even that is in motion. Even that is changing. There are places that will say, we'll ship it to you and you can try it out and return it with no commitment. But how often do we ever really return it? And that's what those companies are relying on. And not that it's a bad thing to have such a system in place. In fact, it's nice to have those options available. But again, you need to have the confidence that the item that will be arriving at your doorstep that you'll be sleeping on perhaps for the next decade, 3 decades, who knows how long, is going to be what you need. You should be able to spend a little bit of time identifying the object, and it should be available to you to find the object that works for you. And then having identified it, it should indeed be what you want, what you need. The systems that make those connections between those objects and us are at a tipping point. They're trying to find their way in between the more basic, somewhat older style of putting the onus on the user to really search and sort through all the listings that are just put out straight in front of you for you to try to see what's out there and find the right one, and maybe you make the right decision and maybe you don't. You have a bit more of a clear interface of what to find, but it's also complicated. Or on the other hand, channeling the user towards products and items that the marketplace wants you to see, which does not necessarily coincide with what will be the best value and the best fit for you. This is an aspect of technology that does not get enough credit nor enough time spent by people in many walks of life to think about. It's not enough for some software development team to work on it. It's not enough for a designer and user interfaces to think about. It's not something that just a supply chain manager can consider how to get products where they need to be. This is a cross-cutting concern, and it's a surprisingly important one. As more and more items get moved online, get bought and sold and traded online, as thousands and millions of people create and deliver products through a handful of major marketplaces and a larger smattering of smaller ones, the actual tangible quality of our lives will be impacted by how well these systems work, by how well we can find what's out there that will suit our lives best. There's so much great stuff out there, and the chances are in all of it, there are the items that will work best for you. But if you're a seller, how are you supposed to find that person? If you're a buyer, how are you supposed to find the maker, the seller? There are people with new ideas every day, but often they're slow to put into practice. Someone out there could have had the best, most perfect idea for how to connect a producer and a consumer, but the chances are his or her idea will never make it to the ear of the person who actually controls how the interfaces in these marketplaces work. Even if it somehow does, if the person is in the right place at the right time, they work for one of these marketplaces like Amazon or eBay or Etsy or whoever, or they know someone there, or they just get lucky. But even if it gets heard, that doesn't mean it will get implemented. It may not be found to be in the best interest of that company. But the field is ripe for someone who can impactfully make such a change. Whether it's within one of these existing marketplaces or through the medium of a new marketplace, a new system, there's a lot of promise for someone who can much more effectively connect the dots. Right now as consumers, we think we have a lot of choice in what we buy, and in theory we do. But in practicality, we're often just driven to see a few items, to buy the thing that's convenient. We often never even see what's really there to be bought. And we often miss out on the things that could really change our lives. Someone who can solve that problem would not only stand to make a killing, but would make a very real difference to the lives of anyone who has ever bought anything online. It's a very minor difference by appearances, just some changes in an interface of how you find a product online. But the outcome is significant.